ex-girlfriend sabotaged my job interview after I helped her pay off her debt and supported her for 2 years. So I made sure her dream job offer turned into a public nightmare she'll never recover from. I was never the kind of guy people noticed. Not in school, not at work. I kept to myself, worked hard, and tried to be decent to the people around me. That's probably why when I fell for Emily, I fell so hard. She was stunning, confident, the kind of woman who could light up a room and make everyone feel like they mattered. When she chose me, I thought I'd won the lottery. Everyone said she was out of my league. I agreed. But I loved her with everything I had. When she lost her job, I covered the rent. When her credit cards exploded, I paid them off. When her mom got sick, I drained my savings to fly her out to visit. For 2 years, I gave without asking for anything back. Until the day of my biggest job interview, a senior developer role at a company I'd been dreaming of since college. I prepared for weeks. Emily knew how much it meant to me. That morning, everything went wrong. The address she gave me for the interview, wrong building. The suit I had dry cleaned, gone. She forgot to pick it up. My presentation USB, corrupted. She had used my laptop the night before. I didn't get the job. Worse, I embarrassed myself in front of the panel. I found out 2 days later that Emily had met someone else, a guy who worked at the same company. She had sabotaged me so he wouldn't have competition. She thought I'd just disappear. She was wrong, because I had something she didn't know about. Access to her digital portfolio, her fake references, and the exact company that had just offered her the job of her dreams. And I made sure that job offer became the reason she'll never work in her field again. For 2 years, I poured every ounce of myself into that relationship. Not because I was naive or desperate, but because I genuinely believed in love as a partnership, in showing up for the people you care about, even when it costs you everything. And maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. Not the betrayal, not the manipulation, not the cold, calculated way Emily dismantled my biggest opportunity while smiling at me like I was the center of her universe. She came into my life like a spark. Sharp wit, effortless charm, and the kind of confidence that made people lean in when she spoke. I was a quiet guy, always in the background, always working hard without asking for applause. And when someone like her chose me, it felt like all the quiet years had finally paid off. She was stunning, magnetic, ambitious in a way that looked like drive, but later revealed itself as entitlement. When she lost her job, I didn't blink. I picked up the slack, worked overtime, canceled trips, and cut back on my own expenses just to make sure she didn't drown. I never complained. I thought that's what love meant, showing up no matter what. I paid off over $12,000 in her credit card debt. I flew her out to see her sick mother when she couldn't afford a flight. I even stopped contributing to my own retirement savings just so we could make rent without the lights getting shut off. And she was grateful, or at least she acted like it. She'd leave me notes in my lunch, kiss me goodnight, whisper about our future together. I believed every word. That's what kills me now, the fact that I believed her. And I guess that's why it hurt so much when everything unraveled on the one day that was supposed to be about me. The interview was for a senior software developer position at a company I had idolized since college. I had studied their architecture, contributed to their open source projects, even exchanged a few posts with one of their senior engineers online. Getting an interview felt like winning the lottery. For weeks, I prepped every night, mock interviews, presentation rehearsals, technical deep dives. Emily said she was proud of me. She offered to help, picked out my suit, offered to handle the dry cleaning, even offered to drop me off so I wouldn't stress about parking downtown. It felt supportive, like we were a team. But the morning of the interview, things started to fall apart. First, the suit. When I asked where it was, she blinked and said, "Oh my God, I completely forgot to pick it up yesterday," like it was a small oversight. I scrambled to find something decent, finally settling on an old jacket that didn't quite fit. Then came the address. She had written it down for me on a sticky note the night before. Said she triple-checked it. When I pulled up to the building, it was the wrong office. Not just a few doors off. A completely different company in a completely different part of town. By the time I found the right location, I was 15 minutes late. I rushed in, breathless, sweating, already apologizing before I even sat down. But I wasn't done. When they asked for my presentation, a 10-minute overview of a prototype I had built, I plugged in the USB drive, only to find it corrupted. The files were gone. Unrecoverable. The only copy I had was on my laptop, and that, of course, had been used the night before by Emily to watch a movie while I was asleep. I stammered through the rest of the interview like a man trying to climb out of quicksand. I saw the looks on their faces. I knew I'd blown it. I went home crushed, convinced I had just ruined the best opportunity of my career. Emily comforted me, held me, said it was just bad luck, said something better would come. She even cooked dinner that night, my favorite, pasta with too much garlic, just how I liked it. But 2 days later, I found out the truth. A friend of mine who worked at the company sent me a message. Sorry about what happened. I didn't know you and Emily broke up. Crazy she's dating Kevin now. Kevin, the guy I met once at her old office party. A senior engineer at the company I had interviewed at. The same company she helped sabotage my interview for. It all snapped into place. The forgotten suit, the wrong address, the corrupted files. She had sabotaged me so I wouldn't pose a threat to her new boyfriend. She knew exactly how much that job meant to me, and she destroyed it with a smile on her face and garlic on her breath. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there staring at my blank laptop screen, letting the weight of it all settle. And then, something clicked. I remembered the time she had asked me to help her with her digital portfolio. She wasn't tech savvy, and I'd built the whole thing for her. Designed the layout, uploaded the files, wrote some of the content under her direction. I also remembered how lazy she was with passwords, how she used the same credentials across everything. I opened a browser, typed in the site, and logged in. It worked. Everything was still there. Her full portfolio, the fake project descriptions, the glowing testimonials she had written herself and assigned to fictional clients, and a set of references that, upon closer inspection, were tied to burner phone numbers and inactive Gmail accounts. I sat back, stunned. This wasn't just someone who lied to me. This was someone who had built their entire professional identity on a web of deception. And she had just accepted an offer for the job of her dreams, a UX lead role at a high-profile agency known for their strict integrity standards and zero tolerance for falsification. It was the perfect opportunity. For her, and now for me. I didn't plan to destroy her. I simply planned to reveal the truth, and I knew exactly how to start. The first thing I did was download everything. Her resume, the portfolio I had built for her, the testimonials I now knew were completely fabricated, and the full list of references that included names like Anna R. and Liam C., all supposedly former co-workers or team leads, each one tied to either a burner phone or an email account that bounced back with delivery errors when I tested them. I wasn't surprised. Emily never liked to be held accountable. She was the type who believed that confidence could replace competence, that enough charisma and eye contact could get her through any situation. And, for a while, she was right. She had floated from job to job, always exiting with vague reasons. Personality conflicts, lack of creative freedom, toxic environments. I had chalked it up to bad luck, or her being misunderstood. But now I saw it clearly. Emily didn't just bend the truth, she sculpted it like clay, painting herself into a version of reality where she was always the victim, always the misunderstood genius, and anyone who questioned her was threatened or jealous. I spent hours cataloging her digital footprint. Her LinkedIn page listed skills she'd never practiced, awards she never won, and even a guest lecture she claimed to have given at a university she never attended. I cross-referenced every project on her website, including the UI mock-ups she claimed to have designed for fintech startups, and found identical templates online, free assets repurposed and renamed. The more I dug, the clearer the picture became. She had built an entire career on other people's work and empty promises, and now she had been offered a UX lead position at Invertu, a tech agency known for high-end branding, multi-million-dollar clients, and a reputation so pristine they once rescinded an offer from an executive over a tweet he liked 5 years ago. This was no ordinary job. It was the kind of role people wait a decade for. I knew the name because I had followed Invertu for years. I even remembered reading a blog post from their CEO about hiring with ethical precision and how their core philosophy revolved around authenticity and transparency, which made it ironic and frankly poetic that someone like Emily had managed to sneak through their gates with a stack of lies under her arm. But that's the thing about people like her. They never expect the truth to catch up. They're too used to charming their way out of corners. I didn't want to go nuclear too fast. If I exposed her too early, she'd just deny everything, say it was an ex trying to ruin her life, spin a victim story. So I decided to take my time. I knew she was still using the portfolio I built, her own site redirected to it, still hosted under the URL I had originally set up for her. She hadn't changed the admin credentials either. Rookie mistake. I logged in and checked the analytics. There it was. Multiple visits from Invertu's internal IP, including some from their HR and recruiting servers. I smiled. That meant they were still reviewing her materials, maybe prepping her for onboarding. I created a clone of the portfolio, an exact replica, but with each project page replaced by a subtle watermark. This design belongs to template site, or this content was fabricated by name redacted. I didn't publish it yet. I was just setting the stage. Then, I created a second document, an anonymous tip report outlining each false claim on her resume, with hyperlinks, screenshots, and comparisons between her portfolio and the original sources. I attached metadata, timestamps, and even her own emails where she admitted to borrowing certain case studies to look more competitive. I didn't sign the report. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. But before sending anything, I decided to do one last thing: test the waters. I created a new identity, Sarah Chen, a supposed former co-worker of Emily's from a defunct startup, and sent a casual email to Invirtu's team, congratulating them on finally hiring Emily and saying how lucky they were to bring in someone with such bold creative ideas, like that mental health tracking app she built for BloomTech, a project I had invented on the spot. I wanted to see what they knew, what they believed. 2 days later, I received a reply, not from a receptionist, but from the VP of product himself. "That was one of the projects that really impressed us," he wrote. "She clearly left a strong mark on your team." I stared at the email for a long time. BloomTech never existed. I had made up the name, the app, the entire story, and they had bought it. That's when I knew they hadn't verified anything. They had been charmed, sold a narrative, blinded by the confidence. And now, they were about to onboard a fraud. It would have been easy to send the tip report right then. But I had a better idea. I waited until I confirmed the date of her final onboarding meeting, the one where she would present to the leadership team and meet the department heads in a live Zoom session. I knew she'd talk about her projects, I knew she'd cite her experience, and I knew, deep down, that she wouldn't be able to resist referencing the fake ones. So I waited. I watched. I prepared the email. I timed the send. And just before that meeting started, I hit send on the report and BCC'd the top 5 executives in the company. The subject line was simple: "Regarding your new UX lead hire, please read before finalizing." The message was brief. The attachments weren't. And by the time Emily logged into that Zoom meeting, she was walking into a minefield she didn't even know she'd planted. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel remorse. I felt focus. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity, and the best part? I was just getting started. Watching someone like Emily step blindly into a trap of their own making was like watching a stage performer walk onto a dark set, reciting lines from a script you wrote without ever realizing they weren't the one directing the show anymore. And by the time her final onboarding meeting rolled around, everything was already in place. The timing, the recipients, the documents, the links, the metadata, the anonymous testimonial from Sarah Chen, suddenly gaining quiet attention inside Invirtu's HR Slack channels, all building into a perfectly timed moment of exposure that she wouldn't even see coming until it was too late to pivot or lie her way out. I had waited patiently, even restraining myself from striking earlier when I found out that she had already posted the new job offer on her LinkedIn with one of those over-polished captions she loved so much. When preparation meets opportunity, magic happens. So honored to join the Invirtu team and bring heart-led innovation to a company that values empathy. By impact. It made me sick, and it also made me smile. Because I knew, with absolute certainty, that everything she had written would age like spoiled milk once the truth surfaced. The morning of the Zoom presentation, I logged in using one of my burner accounts to access the event through the public webinar link she had shared in a design networking group. Her fatal mistake. She wanted to be seen. She always wanted an audience. I made sure she got one. She entered the call exactly 3 minutes late, laughing breathlessly like she'd just rushed from a cab, wearing a crisp white blouse and lipstick too red for corporate. The exec smiled politely. The VP of product, the head of UX, the CTO, all present, all quiet, all unusually still. Emily launched into her intro with confidence, talking about her strategic empathy framework and how she built a design culture rooted in purposeful disruption, whatever that meant. She was spewing her usual buzzword salad, but I was focused on her eyes. Even through a webcam, I could see something flicker. Was it confusion? Hesitation? She kept glancing at the top corner of her screen, like she was watching Slack notifications come in. I knew they had already received my anonymous report. I knew at least 2 of those executives had opened the attached link, which led to a mirrored version of her portfolio annotated with notes, highlighting every lie, every stolen concept, every unverifiable claim. One of the design projects she was most proud of, the BloomTech mental wellness platform, had been fabricated entirely. In the fake site I created, I had replaced every section of that case study with fictional, created as part of a digital sting operation. Even the testimonial was flagged. This quote is from a Fiverr review of an unrelated freelancer named Carlos. I watched as the CTO, a woman with sharp features and a reputation for being merciless with frauds, suddenly muted her mic and leaned away from the camera. She was messaging someone. A minute later, Emily's smile faltered. Her pitch slowed. Sorry, she said, pausing mid-sentence. I just want to, take a moment to center this presentation back on the core values. But no one was interrupting her. No one had even asked a question yet. Her voice cracked. She kept glancing down, probably at Slack or texts, or maybe the email forwarded to her by someone trying to warn her. Panic, I've learned, has a very specific look. It's not sweat or tears. It's a forced smile, a voice that lifts too high at the end of a sentence. a sudden fidget in the hands, a stammer where there was once certainty. She started referencing the BloomTech app as if it were real, but her words were more cautious now, peppered with "I believe" and "to my understanding," the verbal hedges of someone bracing for impact. The VP of product finally cut in. "Emily, can you clarify something for me?" His voice was calm, almost disarmingly so. "Your case study on BloomTech, we tried to verify it internally and we're having trouble locating the company in our databases. Do you have a point of contact there who can confirm your role?" Silence. For 2 full seconds, she didn't blink. Then she smiled. "Oh, BloomTech was a startup that, unfortunately pivoted away from wellness right before launch. The domain expired, but I might still have the founder's email somewhere. I'll follow up after this." "Of course," the VP replied, eyes flat. "And what about the testimonial from Liam C? He lists himself as head of product at Threadspace, but our records show no such person exists." Emily's face dropped half an inch before she caught it. "Oh, that's odd. Liam must have updated his title, or maybe I made a typo in the role. I'll double check that." "And your experience at Nolly Design Studio?" asked the CTO now, voice like ice. "Can you confirm the dates? We reached out and they have no employment record under your name." Emily blinked rapidly. "I worked freelance for them. It's possible it wasn't under HR records, just contract work." "As a lead UX strategist?" The CTO didn't even hide the smirk. Emily's camera froze for a moment, probably from her internet stuttering, or maybe her hand trembling as she tried to close tabs. The VP exhaled audibly. "Emily, I think we need to reschedule this meeting. There seems to be some confusion about the information you've provided." And that was it. The call didn't end with yelling. It didn't need to. It ended with quiet professional disappointment, and in Emily's world, that's worse than rage. It meant no sympathy, no forgiveness, just blacklisting. I watched her face as they all signed off one by one, leaving her alone on the screen, blinking at a digital grave she dug herself. I didn't record the meeting. I didn't need to, because less than an hour later, someone else did the job for me. The Zoom clip started circulating in private design channels, first as a whisper, then as a warning. And Emily's name became the newest cautionary tale in a world where your portfolio is your passport and your lies are forever traceable. But this was just the start. The unraveling had begun. What happened after that meeting wasn't a dramatic implosion. It was worse than that. It was surgical, quiet, systematic, and unrelenting, like watching a structure collapse in controlled demolition, one beam at a time, until only dust and memory remained. And as much as I wanted to feel a wave of satisfaction in that moment, what I actually felt was something colder, more precise. Completion. The executives at Invirtu didn't send Emily a long, angry email or make a public statement. They didn't need to. Instead, they forwarded a formal notice the next morning, thanking her for her time and interest. But after careful consideration and internal review, they would be rescinding their offer, effective immediately. There was no apology, no explanation, just corporate sterilization, the kind that signals finality without discussion. But by then, the damage had already begun to ripple outward, because the recording of the Zoom meeting, though not meant to be public, had already made its way through multiple design Slack groups, thanks to one of the interns at Invirtu who, according to a message I received from a mutual, was so embarrassed secondhand that they saved it as a case study of what not to do during onboarding. And so it spread, not as a full clip, but in moments, in screen grabs, in quotes. Her phrase, "I'll follow up after this," became a meme for people dodging questions they can't answer. A slow zoom of her face mid-panic became a reaction image. Designers whispered about her in Discord groups, not with hatred, but with quiet pity and disdain, as if she were a child who got caught drawing with permanent marker on the wall and now had to live with it for the rest of her life. Someone even created a satirical Behance page called BloomTech Redux, complete with stock photos and lorem ipsum text labeled, "Designed by Ghosts, Developed by Regret." I didn't share it. I didn't have to. I just watched. Her LinkedIn changed overnight. First, she removed the Invirtu announcement, then she set her profile to private, then she deleted her last few posts entirely. But people remembered. Screenshots circulated. A Reddit thread appeared titled, "UX Girl Boss Exposed Mid-Onboarding," and while it wasn't directly linked to her name, it took less than 10 comments before someone connected the dots. I know, because I had seeded the first clue myself, an anonymized version of her resume uploaded to Pastebin, timestamped, and quietly linked in the comment thread with the caption, "Compare this with the Zoom notes." It was subtle, believable, damning. A few of her old clients started chiming in too, not to defend her, but to admit they had doubts about the originality of her work even back then, or that she delegated a lot more than she claimed. One said they'd hired her to design a landing page and later found the exact same layout on a pre-built template marketplace. Another said she'd ghosted halfway through a retainer. She tried to fight back, briefly. I noticed she reactivated Twitter, new handle, new name, and tried to pivot into the self-help lane, posting vague, inspirational quotes and trauma-drenched reflections about narcissistic abuse, clearly an attempt to frame herself as the victim of a bitter ex-boyfriend or toxic system. It didn't catch. People weren't interested. The silence was louder than outrage. A few randoms engaged with her tweets, but the moment someone replied with a screenshot from the Zoom or a link to the Reddit thread, she deleted the post. One of her remaining friends, someone I always suspected was more of a social climber than a real friend, tried to defend her in a design group chat saying she was going through a tough time, and someone else replied, "Yeah, consequences." That was the entire response. One word, one perfect word, consequences. And that's when I knew she'd hit the point of no return, not because she was being shouted down, but because no one cared enough to fight for her. She wasn't even controversial. She was forgettable. And in a field built on reputation, trust, and authenticity, being forgotten is the worst thing that can happen. I started receiving DMs from people I didn't know, other designers, recruiters, even a small agency founder, thanking me for sharing the warning signs, even though they didn't know I was the one who pulled the strings. A few asked if I had ever worked with her directly. I didn't reply. I wasn't doing this for credit. I was doing this for closure. But the final confirmation came when I received an alert from a recruiter platform we had both used during our early career days. Emily's profile had been flagged for inconsistent employment history and unverifiable references. She'd been suspended. I clicked on the notification. It included a link to her latest application, to another design firm. The same one I had applied to 6 months prior. They hadn't chosen me back then. But now, well, it looked like the timing might just be right. I didn't plan to go after her again. I didn't need to. She was doing a fine job collapsing on her own. But when I saw the application ID and recognized the hiring manager's name, a thought crept in. Maybe this wasn't over. Not yet. Emily always believed she was invincible, that no matter what lies she spun or shortcuts she took, she could smile her way out of consequences, charm her way back into people's good graces, and reinvent herself as many times as needed because no one would ever dig deep enough to remember what she really was. But every grift has a limit, every mask starts to crack under pressure, and when I saw her name pop up again, this time as a candidate applying to the exact firm that rejected me 6E, months prior, something inside me stirred. Not rage, not revenge, but something cleaner, colder, precision. I didn't do anything immediately. I waited, watched, kept tabs. I knew how these hiring cycles worked, how much trust the process places on perception. She was in the final round again. She had made it through the cracks. Same portfolio, same fraudulent case studies. But this time, the world wasn't asleep. Someone had already posted about the Bloom Tech scandal in a private Slack I happened to be part of. The hiring manager, Sarah P., had seen it. She even commented, "Please tell me this isn't the same Emily we just moved forward." That was all I needed. I opened a fresh email thread, anonymous as usual, attached a newer, more updated version of the report, including a few new receipts I hadn't used before. A video clip from a freelancing platform where she reused one of her fake testimonials, metadata pulled from one of her portfolio images proving it had been lifted from Dribbble, and a recorded voice note from an old phone backup where she once laughed with a friend saying, "Half the stuff I show in interviews is just AI-generated mock-ups or shit I found on Reddit." I waited 24 hours, then 48. No response, no reaction. And then, on the third day, her entire online presence vanished in one sweep. Her new Twitter, gone. Her LinkedIn, blank. Her Behance page, deactivated. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst came from a message I got from someone who claimed to work in the HR department at that firm, saying that when they called her for a final culture fit interview, she broke down on the call. She had gotten the first question, something benign like, "Tell us about a time you led a design team through a pivot." And halfway through her answer, she froze. Dead silence for 10 full seconds. Then she started stammering, repeating herself saying, "I don't know," over and over until finally she burst out, "I'm just tired, okay?" They thought it was nerves, until someone checked her references. And the hiring manager herself, Sarah, decided to run a reverse image search on one of her portfolio thumbnails, just to be safe. It led them to a design template website. That's when the call ended. That's when they rescinded the offer. But Emily didn't take it quietly this time. No, she posted on Facebook, one of the few platforms she hadn't deleted, writing a long, tear-filled rant about being cyberbullied by an ex and blacklisted by an industry full of gatekeepers. It was dramatic, victim-centric, full of vague threats about legal action and mental health. But the comments weren't what she expected. No one rallied. No one defended her. A few neutral friends left hearts. Most said nothing. And a few brave souls, people I didn't even know, replied with links, screenshots, even memes. One person simply commented, "Girl, we saw the Zoom." That was the end of it. Her meltdown wasn't televised. It wasn't explosive. It was humiliating because it was ignored. The world didn't hate her. It forgot her. The job offer she sabotaged me for years ago? Gone. The guy she betrayed me with? Long gone. The network she built on aesthetics and lies? Ghost town. And while she scrambled to patch the ruins, I got a message from Sarah, the same hiring manager. She said she was impressed by how thorough my anonymous documentation had been. She said if I was still available, they had an opening again. A real one. Not just out of pity, but out of respect. I didn't say yes. Not right away. I let it sit in my inbox, unopened, unread, just long enough for the past to feel fully behind me. Because it wasn't about taking something from her anymore. It was about reclaiming something for myself. And yet, even with the offer in hand, I knew I hadn't closed the door completely. Not yet. Because there was still one last thread left to cut, one last message to send, not to her, to the people she might try to fool next. In the end, Emily didn't vanish with a bang, but with a whimper, like a candle slowly suffocating in its own smoke. Because the kind of person who builds their identity on borrowed brilliance and counterfeit confidence never expects the truth to walk in wearing quiet shoes, and by the time she realized her past had caught up, there was no one left to vouch for her, no friend to call, no ladder to climb. I never responded to her Facebook meltdown, not even when I saw her comments about being stalked by a bitter ex or how people love to destroy what they can't control. It didn't matter anymore. Her voice was just another echo in the void, trying desperately to summon sympathy from a crowd that had already walked away. What mattered was what came after. I accepted the job offer from the firm that once rejected me, not because I needed revenge, but because it was always mine to begin with, a role I'd earned through merit and resilience, and now, finally, on my own terms. On my first day, I walked past the same lobby where Emily once stood smiling in fake confidence, and this time I didn't hesitate. I walked in with quiet pride and a clear conscience. My work spoke for itself. My references were real. My projects, mine. I didn't need to step on anyone to rise. Meanwhile, I kept tabs, not obsessively, just occasionally, on where she tried to pop up next. She attempted a rebrand under a new name, E. Ray, claiming she was starting fresh as a creative consultant. But the internet doesn't forget, and her alias was quickly tied to the scandal. Forums reposted the Zoom video. Designers commented with caution emojis. Her following never grew past 3 digits. One of her fake references even messaged me, thanking me for the exposure. Turns out she had once listed him without permission, and he'd been dealing with backdoor inquiries for months. I told him he wasn't the only one. But I didn't campaign to bury her. I didn't need to. The industry did it for me. She had become a parable, a whispered warning to recruiters. Verify everything, even if the portfolio is beautiful. At conferences, I heard her name referenced obliquely, always followed by silence or a half smirk. Her presence had gone from impressive to infamous. And still, she tried. She applied to small agencies under pseudonyms, joined design groups under new handles, even tried to position herself as a speaker on overcoming adversity. But adversity you create with your own lies isn't something you overcome. It's something you carry. Forever. Months later, I got one final message, an anonymous email, no greeting, no signature, just one line. I hope you're happy. I read it once, then twice. And I smiled. Because I wasn't happy. I was whole. There's a difference. Happiness is fleeting. Wholeness is earned. I didn't destroy her. I simply peeled away the illusion she used to climb and let gravity do the rest. In the quiet that followed, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I wasn't defined by what she took from me anymore. I was defined by how I took it back. With patience. With truth. And with the one thing she never thought I had. The power to wait. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It isn't cruel. It's simply this. Becoming everything they said you'd never be, and watching them become everything they swore they weren't.